We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your King. Good tidings all Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
This is Artie Meeker. This was when I was 4 years old in the Epworth Methodist Church. My Christmas message was Merry Christmas to you all, the big ones and the small. If there is anyone besides, I wish them well too. If there is anyone I missed, I wish them Merry Christmas and a blessed 2022. Bye.
Away in a manger.
treetops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the treetops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white. Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!
A simpler Christmas. Amidst the stress-filled hustle and bustle of Christmas preparations today, I often think back to Christmases I celebrated as a little girl with my older brother and sister on a small farm near Comfort, Texas. Christmas seemed so much simpler then. Life seemed so much simpler then. Preparation started only a week or two after Thanksgiving. The days grew noticeably shorter, and the northers, or cold fronts from the north, came more frequently. After supper, Papa would often crack pecans using a screw-type nutcracker that he fastened to the wood kitchen table. When the dishes were done, the rest of us would help him shell the pecans, eating several as we worked and talked. Mama sent cards and letters to distant family members and friends. She would write about the year's crops and family happenings in her own handwriting. What a gift of time and love those writings were. And what fun it was to go to the mailbox down by the road and receive colorful cards and letters in return. Shopping for gifts was done mostly in comfort at Marie's Variety Store, or on a rare trip to Kerrville, about 20 miles away. Some gifts were ordered from the Sears and Roebuck or Montgomery Ward catalogs. Gifts among our family were simple, usually something needed. From coins put by my mama throughout the year into a little toy bank with a slot in the back, I could purchase something like a pair of socks for Papa and a pretty handkerchief for Mama. A new flannel nightgown was often what Papa gave Mama. He sometimes got a box of cigars. I was thrilled to get a new doll. One that I still have is a walking doll with a red and white dress. Christmas preparations also brought wonderful smells coming from the old kitchen wood stove. Sugar cookies were baked and decorated. Mama always made a fruit cake, not my favorite, one that seemed to last till long after Christmas. But I loved the hard pecan candy she made in a black cast iron skillet on top of the stove. Some of my fondest memories center around the cedar Christmas tree. About a week before Christmas, Papa and I would drive to a friend's house and ask the lady for permission to search for a tree on her property. We tromped around the hills till we found the right one, about 3 feet tall. Papa would use a pickaxe to dig it up, tie a rope around it, sling it on his back, and back down the hills we would tromp to put the tree in the trunk of the old 36 Chevy. When we got home, it was placed in a 5-gallon bucket with wet sand, and it was placed on top of a round table. Mama would wrap a white cloth all around the bucket, fasten it with pins, and out of an old suitcase came the string of lights and colorful glass ornaments. We would also string apples and candy canes. Last of all came the silvery icicles, placed one by one. There was always a Sunday school program at church the Sunday night before Christmas, to which we would go and in which I participated with my class. We would have had to memorize a song or two and perhaps a Bible verse from the story of the birth of Jesus. I would be nervous and proudly wear a new dress sewed by Mama on her treadle sewing machine. After the program, we would drive around the little town of Comfort, looking at the decorations put out by a few people. Christmas Eve would finally come. Mama would have cleaned the house and a nice supper prepared. All the wood stoves in the house would have a warm fire going in them, including the one in the back bedroom where the tree was. Late in the afternoon, no one except Mama or Papa could go into that room because Santa Claus might be in there. After eating supper and dressing up a little, we would all gather in the bedroom next to the last one. In one corner was an old Edison record player. Mama or Papa would put on one Christmas record we had, Silent Night. Then came the magic moment. We would go into the room where the Christmas tree was. Only the lights on the tree were on, and the warm fire crackled in the little wood stove. The room was filled with the smells of apples and cedar. There were presents all around the tree and some on the floor underneath the table. We would just stand there for a few minutes and take it all in. After sitting down, one of us would read the Christmas story from Luke 2, and only then did we open our presents. Christmas seemed simpler then. Life seemed simpler then. Perhaps it was because I did not have the responsibilities of an adult. However, to this day, I cannot sing Silent Night without getting a lump in my throat or shedding a tear or two.
Oh, Christmas tree, how lovely are your branches. Oh, Christmas tree, how lovely are your branches. The sight of thee at Christmas time brings hope and gladness far and wide. Oh, Christmas tree, how lovely are your branches. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in one horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in one horse open sleigh. Hey, dashing through the snow, over the fields we go, laughing all the way. Ha ha ha. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in one horse open sleigh.
Christmas is more than a day in December. It's all those things that we love to remember. It's carolers singing familiar refrains, bright-colored stockings, and shining toy trains, streamers of tinsel and glass satin balls, laughter that rings through the house and its halls. Christmas is more than a day in December. It's the magic and the love that we'll always remember.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!
Said the night wind to the little lamb, do you see what I see? Way up in the sky, little lamb, do you see what I see? A star, dancing in the night, with a tail as big as a kite, with a tail as big as a kite. Said the little lamb to the shepherd boy, do you hear what I hear? Ringing through the sky, shepherd boy, do you hear what I hear? A song, high above the tree, with a voice as big as the sea, with a voice as as big as the sea. Said the shepherd to the mighty king, do you know what I know? In your palace warm, mighty king, do you know what I know? A child shivers in the cold. Let us bring him silver and gold. Let us bring him silver and gold. Said the king to the people everywhere, listen to what I say. Pray for peace, people everywhere. Listen to what I say. The child, sleeping in the night, he will bring us goodness and light. He will bring us goodness and light.
I'd like to talk to you about a Christmas song that just doesn't seem to make sense. It talks about lords a-leaping, doves cooing, maids milking, swans a-swimming. It just doesn't seem to make sense. But then I just found out that this is a song that was written in the time of persecution of the Christian church. And they couldn't really talk directly about what they believed. So they're using all of these 12 things as symbols of what their basic faith is. Of course, you would think the true love in the beginning is God, and Jesus is the partridge. Well, the partridge was a loving bird that would flop away whenever there was a predator and even give its own life. That's how the whole song goes. A couple of my favorites are for calling birds. That refers to the four Gospels. And I like that because a sparrow has a chirp and a mourning dove has a coo kind of. A duck just has a quack, quack, quack. But these calling birds have special calls. And they're all different. It's true about the Gospels. They're all different. But they all talk about that same blessed Christ. Another one that I really like is the last one that talks about the 12 drummers drumming. And you would think that would be about the disciples, but it's really not. The 12 are just drummers drumming, and the whole idea is they're sharing together the Apostles' Creed. They're doing it to show their unity and their rhythm together. It's a shared blessing. Actually, in worship, we do the same thing. After the sermon, we share the Apostles' Creed. And it's as though we are drummers drumming together. But the question would be, why is this at Christmas? There's no angels, there's no shepherds. All of the regular Christmas stuff is missing, except for one thing. And that's 3 French hens. The French hens were expensive birds that only rich people could afford. Well, who are the rich people in the Christmas story? the wise men who bring gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. It's a beautiful expression, but the whole thing, when you think about it, is about gifts, not just gold and frankincense and myrrh, but this true love giving us everything that we might be blessed.
God bless ye, merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. Remember Christ our Savior was born on Christmas Day, to save us all from Satan's power when we were gone astray. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. In Bethlehem in Israel, the blessed babe was born, and there within a manger upon this blessed morn, the witch's father Mary did nothing take in scorn. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. Not then said the angel, let nothing you affright. This day is born a Savior of the Virgin's bride, to free us all who trust in Him from Satan's power and might. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. God bless ye, merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. Remember Christ our Savior was born on Christmas Day, to save us all from Satan's power when we were gone astray. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy.
Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Peace on earth and mercy mild, God and sinners reconciled. Joyful all ye nations rise, join the triumph of the skies. With angelic hosts proclaim, Christ is born in Bethlehem. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King.
A reading from Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria, and everyone went to his town to register.
So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn.
Glory Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. While shepherds kept their watching over silent flocks by night, behold, throughout the heavens there shone a holy light. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born.
Help wanted. Santa needs new reindeer. The first bunch has grown old. Dasher has arthritis. Comet hates the cold. Prancer's sick of staring at Dancer's big behind. Cupid married Blitzen, and Donder lost his mind. Dancer's mad at Vixen for stepping on his toes. Vixen's being thrown out. She laughed at Rudolph's nose. If you are a reindeer, we hope you will apply. There's just one tricky part. You must know how to fly.
Television's not a missionary, stand surfer, surfing, 9 pounds of boy, 8 ukulele, 7 trips of swimming, 6 hula, 5 big fat pigs, 4 flower legs, 3 dried squid, 2 coconuts, and a minor bird in a papaya tree.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. Mistletoe hung where you can see every couple tries to stop. Rocking around the Christmas tree, let the Christmas spirit ring. Later we'll have some pumpkin pie and we'll do some caroling. You will get a sentimental feeling when you hear voices singing, let's be jolly, deck the halls with boughs of holly. Rocking around the Christmas tree, have a happy holiday. Everyone dancing merrily in the new old-fashioned way. You will get a sentimental feeling when you hear voices singing, let's be jolly, deck the halls with boughs of holly. Rocking around the Christmas tree, have a happy holiday. Everyone dancing merrily in the new old-fashioned way. You know Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen, Comet and Cupid and Donner and Blitzen. and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer games. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight? Then all the reindeer loved him as they shouted out with glee, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history.
The log was in the fireplace, all spiced and set to burn. At last the yearly Christmas race was in the clubhouse turn. The cards were in the mail, all the gifts beneath the tree, and 30 days reprieve till Visa could catch up with me. And though smug satisfaction seemed the order of the day, something still was nagging me and would not go away. A week before, I got a letter from my great aunt. It read, of course, I'll understand completely if you can't, but if you find you have some time, how wonderful it would be. Could we have a chat and share a cup of tea? She had had a mild stroke that year, which crippled her left side. Though housebound now, my folks had said it hadn't hurt her pride. They said she'd love to see you. What a nice thing it would be for you to go and maybe have a Christmas cup of tea. But boy, I didn't want to go. Oh, what a bitter pill to see an old relation and how she'd gone downhill. I remember her vigorous, as funny and as bright. I remember Christmas Eve when she regaled us half the night. I didn't want to risk all that. I didn't want the pain. I didn't need to be depressed. I didn't need the strain. And what about my brother? Why not him? She's his aunt too. I thought I had it justified, but then before I knew the reasons not to go, I so painstakingly had built, were cracking wide and crumbling in an acid rain of guilt. I put on boots and gloves and cap, shame stifling every pore, and armed with squeegee, sand, and map, I went out my front door. I drove in front of the suburbs to the older part of town. The pastels and newer houses gave way to gray and brown. I had that disembodied feeling as the car pulled up and stopped beside the wooden house that held a Christmas cup. How I got up to her door, I really couldn't tell. I watched my hand rise up and press the button on the bell. I waited, aided by my nervous rocking to and fro, and just as I was thinking I should turn around and go, I heard the rattling of the china in the hutch against the wall, the triple beat of 2 feet, and a crutch came down the hall. The clicking of the door latch and the sliding of the bolt, and a little swollen struggle popped it open with a jolt. She stood there pale and tiny, looking fragile as an egg. I forced myself from staring at the brace that held her leg, and though she had thick bifocals, seemed to crack and spread her eyes. Their milky and refracted depths lit up with young surprise. Come in, she laughed the words. She took me by the hand, and all my fears dissolved away, as if by her command. We went inside, and then, before I knew how to react, before my eyes and ears and nose was Christmas past, alive, intact. The scent of candles, oranges, of cinnamon and pine, the antique wooden soldiers in their military line, the porcelain nativity I'd always loved so much, the Dresden and the crystal I'd been told I mustn't touch. My spirit fairly bolted like a child out of a class and danced among the ornaments of calico and glass. Like magic, I was 6 again, deep in the Christmas spell. Steeped in the main memories the boy inside knew well. And here among old Christmas cards, so lovingly displayed, a special place of honor for the ones we kids have made. And there beside her rocking chair, the center of it all, the great aunt stood and said, how nice it was I'd come to call. I sat and rattled on about the weather and the flu. She listened very patiently, then smiled and said, what's new? Thoughts and words began to flow. I started making sense. I lost the phony breeziness I'd used when I got tense. She was still passionately interested in everything I did. She was positive, encouraging, like when I was a kid. Simple generalities still sent her into fits. She demanded the specifics, the particulars, the bits. We talked about the limitations that she'd had to face. She spoke with utter candor and with humor and good grace. Then, defying the reality of crutch and straightened knee, on wings of hospitality, she flew to brew the tea. I sat alone with feelings that I hadn't felt in years. I looked around at Christmas through a thick, hot blur of tears. And the candles and the holly she'd arranged on every shelf, the impossibly good cookies she still somehow baked herself. The triple beat of 2 feet and a crutch came down the hall, the rattle of a china in the hutch along the wall. She poured 2 cups, she smiled, and then she handed one to me. And then we settled back and had a Christmas cup of tea.
Away in a manger, no crib for a bed, the little Lord Jesus laid down his sweet head. The stars in the sky looked down where he lay, the little Lord Jesus asleep on the hay.
Merry Christmas.
We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin, good tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Christmas surprises. It was hard to surprise Tom, my husband, for Christmas. First of all, he was a difficult person for whom to buy a gift. He was rather particular about his clothes and not the easiest person to fit. As far as tools were concerned, I knew so little about them I could not make an informed choice. As far as something sentimental, I could rarely come up with something I was happy about. Secondly, he kept pretty close track of our finances. It was difficult to write a check or make a purchase out of the ordinary without him questioning it. Thirdly, when presents started showing up around the tree, he got downright nosy, wanting to know if any of them were for him, and if so, what was in them. The third point became a sort of game with him after one particular Christmas when we lived on 33rd Street in Cedar Rapids. Ryan was just about 4 or 5 years old, and John would have been a baby at the time. A dear neighbor, Arvita, who had 6 children of her own, would graciously have Brian and John come to her house when I needed to do some shopping, or have one of her girls come to our house to stay with the boys. I decided that year to get Tom a guitar because he had said it might be fun to learn to play one. In those years, he was a credit union examiner and did a fair amount of traveling to credit unions around the state, often being gone from Monday morning till Thursday evening. His absence and the gracious nature of Arvita gave me the opportunities to do some serious shopping for a guitar. After 2 or 3 outings, I had decided upon one I thought would be appropriate. One Thursday morning, I made plans to actually purchase the guitar, and because it would be a rather short shopping trip, I took both boys with me. The purchase was made, and upon returning home, I took the guitar in its case up to the attic, where Tom seldom ventured. It was yet about a week or so until Christmas, and I thought it important that our gift remain a secret. In earnest, I explained to Brian that we must not tell Daddy about the guitar because it was a secret. And oh, how happy and surprised Daddy would be when he opened our present. Late that Thursday afternoon, Tom came home as usual. I had the house all cleaned and a supper ready, and thought our surprise was safe. The very minute Tom came into the house, Brian greeted him excitedly and said, Daddy, guess what? We got you a present today. It's a guitar. Well, Tom was a bit surprised, but more than that, very amused. With very little prodding, Brian even told him right where the guitar was hidden. For many Christmases after that one, mischievous Tom would ask the boys where and what his gift was. Sometimes we succeeded in keeping it a secret. More often we did not. When we moved to our present home in Dubuque, there was not a garage on the property. Tom soon had one built and a nice driveway put on. He had purchased a garage door opener for the garage with the intention of installing it himself. Things became very busy for him at the credit union, as they often did, and the opener remained in the box. Brian was now in high school and John in junior high. As Christmas approached, we were in our usual quandary as to what to get Tom. It so happened that earlier that year, Brian had helped Tom and his grandfather install a garage door opener at the Sarvis farm. It occurred to us that just maybe Brian, with John's help, could install the one here. Brian said it would probably take a full day to do it. We carefully watched Tom's schedule, and theirs too, of course, for both of them were busy with school activities. We succeeded in finding a day in which they could both work, and Tom would be out of town for a full day. The day came, and as soon as Tom was out of the driveway, the boys went to work. Even though they often fought and were impatient with each other, they managed to work together rather well on this special quest. By late in the day, the opener was installed. The boys were delighted. They plotted on how to make the door work when their dad came home. They practiced the procedure several times to make sure their plan would work. And it did. One of them watched for Tom to come driving up the hill to our house, slowly turn into our driveway, and just at the right moment, the other one pushed the remote button to open the garage door. This time, we truly surprised him. It was one of our best Christmas gifts ever.
Up on the housetop, reindeer paws. Out jumps good old Santa Claus. Down through the chimney with lots of toys. All for the little ones' Christmas toys. Ho, 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 who wouldn't go? Ho, 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 who wouldn't go? Up on the housetop, click, 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 click. Down through the chimney with good Saint Nick. You better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. He's making a list and checking it twice. He's gonna find out who's naughty or nice. Santa Claus is coming to town. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. Oh, you better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town.
The best gift. John Pierpont died a failure. In 1866, he came to the end of his days as a government clerk in Washington, D.C., with a long string of personal defeats abrading his spirit. Things began well enough. He graduated from Yale, which his grandfather had helped found, and chose education as his profession with some enthusiasm. He was a failure at school teaching. He was too easy on his students. And so he turned to the legal world for training. He was a failure as a lawyer. He was too generous to his clients and too concerned about justice to take the cases that brought good fees. The next career he took up was that of dry good merchant. He was a failure as a businessman. He could not charge enough for his goods to make a profit and was too liberal with credit. In the meantime, he had been writing poetry, and though it was published, he didn't collect enough royalties to make a living. He was a failure as a poet. And so he decided to become a minister, went off to Harvard Divinity School, was ordained minister of the Hollis Street Church in Boston. But his position for prohibition and against slavery got him crosswise with the influential members of his congregation, and he was forced to resign. He was a failure as a minister. Politics seemed a place where he could make some difference, and he was nominated as the Abolition Party candidate for governor of Massachusetts. He lost. Undaunted, he ran for Congress under the banner of the Free Soil Party. He lost. He was a failure as a politician. The Civil War came along and he volunteered as a chaplain of the 22nd Regiment of the Massachusetts Volunteers. 2 weeks later, he quit, having found the task too much of a strain on his health. He was 76 years old. He couldn't even make it as a chaplain. Someone found him an obscure job in the back offices of the Treasury Department in Washington, and he finished out the last 5 years of his life as a menial file clerk. He wasn't very good at that either. His heart was not in it. John Pierpont died a failure. He had accomplished nothing he set out to do or be. There's a small memorial stone marking his grave in Mount Auburn Cemetery in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The words in the granite read, poet, preacher, philosopher, philanthropist. From this distance in time, one might insist that he was not in fact a failure. His commitments to social justice, his desire to be a loving human being, his active engagement in the great issues of his times, and his faith in the power of the human mind, these are not failures. And much of what he thought of as defeat became success. Education was reformed, legal processes were improved, credit laws were changed, and above all, slavery was abolished once and for all. Why am I telling you this? In one very important sense, John Pierpont was not a failure. Every year, come December, we celebrate his success. We carry in our hearts and minds a lifelong memorial to him. It's a song, not about Jesus or angels or even Santa Claus. It's a terribly simple song about the simple joy of whizzing through the cold white dark of winter's gloom in a sleigh pulled by one horse and with the company of friends laughing and singing all the way. No more, no less, Jingle Bells. John Pierpont wrote Jingle Bells. To write a song that stands for the simplest joys, to write a song that 300 or 400 million people around the world know, a song about something they've never done but can imagine, a song that every one of us, large and small, can hoot out the moment the chord is struck on the piano, and the chord is struck in our spirit. Well, that's not failure. One snowy afternoon in deep winter, John Pierpont penned the words as a small gift to his family and friends and congregation, and in doing so, he left a permanent gift for Christmas, the best kind, not the one under the tree, but the invisible, invincible one of joy.
Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh, o'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtails ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells,
You know Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen, Comet and Cupid and Donner and Blitzen.
But do you recall the most famous reindeer of all?
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer.
Had a very shiny nose.
And if you ever saw it,
you would even say it glows.
All of the other reindeer
used to laugh and call him names.
They never let poor Rudolph
join in any reindeer games.
Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say,
Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight?
Then how the reindeer loved him,
as they shouted out with glee,
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer,
you'll go down in history.
"'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hope that St. Nicholas soon would be there.
The children were nestled all snugly in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her turkey, and I in my cap, had just settled our reins for a long winter's nap.
When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter.
I sprang from my bed to see what the heck was the matter.
Away to the window I flew like a flash.
I opened the shutters and I threw up the sash. Gave a luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes did appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer.
With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name.
Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away all.
As leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too.
And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew it in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound.
The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly.
His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry.
His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was white as the snow.
He was dressed all in fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack.
He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread.
He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose.
He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the dawn of a thistle. But I heard him explain, ere he drove out of sight,
Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night.